Hey guys, this is Andrew Nam or Clayakn, and this is Higher Learning Gaming, Episode 4, titled The Importance of Social Gatherings with Briton Alexander. I hope you guys enjoy this podcast today and learn something new from it. Let's get started. What's up everyone? Hope everyone's having a good life. I'm here with Briton Alexander, and for our discussion here today, I'm going to first introduce him and see what he's about, and then afterwards we're going to move on to our topic here today, which is about the importance of social gatherings. All right. Hey Briton, what's up? How's it going?
Hey Andrew, it's going pretty well. Just hanging out in my swivel chair.
Sounds good, man. We first met through John Filippando, right? I believe.
That's correct.
Yeah. And I think we became good friends because we had a similar passion with video games, and we wanted to do something like in our community and impact, like have a positive impact, in Texas. Do you
Absolutely.
think? Yeah, for sure. So tell me about where you grew up and all that good stuff.
So I had kind of a transitory growing up phase, I guess. Whenever I was younger, probably the first 9 years of my life,
Okay.
my dad was in the Navy. We
Wow.
we lived in South Carolina and Connecticut, and then we finally ended up moving to Louisiana, where my dad and my mom are from. But it was a little bitty town, and just went to middle school, high school there. So I
Okay.
would say that's mainly where I'm from.
Do you consider, Louisiana your home then? I was gonna ask that.
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
When'd you come over to Texas then?
Well, from Louisiana, I went
Okay.
to my first year of college at Louisiana Tech, and then my parents moved to Kansas, and I decided to transfer schools and go to Kansas with them. So I finished college in Kansas, and then worked for 2 years there, and then I had gotten married, and me and my wife decided to move to Texas. That's where she's from, and since I'm from Louisiana, I was really used to warm weather. She was too, so we were tired of how cold it was in Kansas.
Yeah, fair enough. Wow, which state is your favorite state then out of all those you've been to?
Man, there's so many memories in Louisiana, and
Okay, yeah.
I always love Louisiana, but I gotta say I like Texas too. I guess I lived in Kansas City, so that was a pretty
Right.
big city, but Dallas is so much bigger and has so much to offer. I really like that.
Yeah, that's good. Do you imagine yourself settling down here, or do you think you're gonna like move and travel around more like you did in your childhood and then see which state or which place feels right to you?
I know since it's since I'm married, it's no
Yeah.
longer my decision solely.
That's
But
understandable.
we've talked about this before. We both have a good or similar ideas on it. I think we still want to travel some more while we're young and
Okay.
try to set down some roots whenever we start to decide to have children.
Yeah. That's what I want to do too, is just travel around more. So,
Absolutely.
all right, let's move on to video games though. Like, tell me
Yeah.
about the first video game you ever played. I want to know about
Man,
that.
I was thinking about this the other day.
Yeah.
Probably the first video game I ever played was Super Mario Brothers for the NES. First video game I remember like watching being played was my
Yeah.
dad playing Legend of Zelda on the NES. That was in
The
gotta be whatever I was,
NES.
5 years old maybe.
Which
So
console is
yeah,
that?
the
That's
Nintendo
before?
Entertainment System before Super Nintendo.
God dang. Okay, I don't know anything about that.
Oh yeah, that's what the cartridges you had to blow. Well, you weren't supposed to blow them, but you blew the bottom of them, then shoved them in the big old gray box with the red light. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, when you saw your dad play Legend of Zelda, is that when you like first had the first thought of, man, I really want to play video games?
Uh, yeah, I
Hmm.
guess so. I don't know if I was um had that much concrete thought at that time, or if I really remember, because it was so young, but I
It's
remember
all good.
he was sitting down on the floor like against the couch, uh, against our playing the video game on the old entertainment system that this was in 1992, I guess.
Wow.
So
Before I was
it was
born.
uh so he had to have been, I don't know, maybe 23 at the time, because he was in
Wow.
the Navy, he was enlisted. So
Right.
I was just sit down there with him and watch him mash the A and B button, directional pad, and it
Wow.
was interesting. It was very captivating. That's a good word, especially for
Captivating.
a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
I can only imagine how kids these days are dealing with being assaulted with video games from everywhere, and how much more vibrant they are than they were back then.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Were you in the military?
No, I haven't, or I'm not.
Yeah.
I am pursuing a military commission since I'm my bachelor's degree, so it's still on the table. We'll just see if it goes through.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Yeah.
What video game do you think is your favorite of all time so far?
Dude. So I don't know if you can pick one favorite. I've had some pretty strong memories associated with a couple of them.
Okay.
Probably see, one of the first ones would have to be Mega Man X for the Super Nintendo.
Oh, that was a great
I
game.
remember playing that with my brother, and pretty much all these are playing with my brother, honestly, because he's like a year younger than me, 18 months, something like that. So Mega Man X for the Super Nintendo, Suikoden 2, or Suikoden, I think is the proper way to pronounce it. We didn't know how to pronounce it, so we just pronounced it however we wanted to. But Suikoden 2 and Suikoden 1, actually, for the PlayStation 1, and probably Fallout 3. I know that's kind of not not what most people, not Fallout purists like, but that was my first I guess Fallout game, and
Yeah,
I've
it's all
always
good.
been into FPSs.
I definitely need to try out Fallout 3.
Yeah, and if you're gonna pick one of the new ones, one of the first-person shooter ones, one of the ones
Yeah.
made by Bethesda, I would probably go with Fallout New Vegas, but Fallout 3 just has my memories associated with it.
Yeah.
So
That's really awesome that you had a brother to play with, because I felt like when I was growing up, that's how I fell in love with video games, was through my brother. We're
Yeah.
we're 4 years apart though, so I know that's a little bigger gap, but I felt like
Mhm.
we were still able to like connect with one another, because it's so weird. I felt like we were able, like I was going through what he went through like 4 years ago, basically.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he
See,
saw. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that dynamic is a little different. I don't know how y'all's relationship is, but with me and my brother, our video game relationship was much more competitive
Oh.
instead of like a pupil and a teacher. Because we were so close in age. I mean, I can remember plenty of Super Street Fighter matches ending in brawls,
Right. Yeah.
or throwing controllers at the TV screen or something like that. Not to say that all of our interactions were competitive, because I really strongly remember going to Blockbuster and
Yeah.
looking for all the video games that had co-op. Like, because you'd always have they'd have all the not the cartridges, but like the containers that they would come in, I guess.
Yeah.
And
I
then
understand.
you'd always flip them over on the back and see, is it 1 to 2 player? Is it co-op? And because it all happened on there. So I remember picking up plenty of Blockbuster games looking for that.
Yeah. I mean, my brother and I, we were a bit competitive, and I was like a bit of like a crybaby as well, because I was like the younger kid. So I would watch him play, and it's like, no, 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 I'll watch you play. And then all of a sudden, like I would say, I want to play, and then we fought a lot through Super Smash Bros. Like that's how we got good. Yeah, he played Snake. This is for Brawl. So he played Snake, and I played Samus, and then we got so good just like by playing against each other so many times and getting mad and frustrated. It it was awesome. So
That's really good. And I think that's cool how our memories with the video games are separated by a small generation, because me and my brother would play Smash Brothers 2, but it was the first one on N64, Super Smash Bros. And I think my brother would always play Fox, and I would play Kirby, which was really terrible because he's a terrible character, but he was the only one I was good with. But yeah, it was the same kind of stuff.
That's interesting. Wow. Okay. Let me talk about how you met your wife, because this is a pretty interesting story, and it's kind of like a transition to our topic. So,
yeah, for sure. Whenever we were in college, I was in a fraternity and she was in a sorority, and you'd think that would be the way that we met, and we actually didn't. We were both in nursing school. She was a semester behind me, and we ended up meeting at a bar on my birthday. And we had just taken shots because one of my friends was her friend, and she invited my wife over to take the shot with us. And I guess she didn't like the shot or something, so she wanted some of my beer to wash it down with. And I said no, because that's not how I play that game. And so she just kind of took the beer from me, and then as my wife likes to say, that's kind of how our relationship has been since then. So
that's so
yeah,
funny.
that was the first way, or how we met, and then we just started dating after that. So
that's awesome, dude. Right. Tell me about your fraternity. Like, which fraternity were you in, and like what you really liked and disliked about it?
I was in Phi Delta Theta fraternity. I ended up holding a couple of positions. I held intramural chair, treasurer, and I was president for a year. It was a very interesting dynamic. Since I was at a smaller school, I didn't deal with as many, I guess they're called legacies, people whose fathers and grandfathers and whatnot, is passed down as a rite of passage to be part of this fraternity. Okay. And a lot of them that I had met at other colleges were very pompous and arrogant. I think I was able to miss a lot of that, or escape a lot of that, by going to a smaller university, but still getting the benefit of being around a social group that is also philanthropic, and then learn a lot of things such as Robert's Rules of Order, how to conduct yourself in meetings, and processes that are necessary for certain organizations that you may get into whenever you get into the workforce. There are a lot of things that you had to do as being part of the fraternity. Whenever we ended up getting our house, we would occasionally have guests over. We had the president of the university over to, have dinner with us at one point. So that was really a good way to, I guess, understand how to conduct yourself in front of people that you want to make a good impression in front of, and things like that. I think there's a lot of positive aspects to it, and a lot of negative aspects, such as having turds that are in your fraternity, having people that you don't particularly want to be associated with, but one of your friends has a friend and they want him to be in the fraternity, that kind of thing. But I mean, that's also a positive way, because you learn how to interact and deal with people that you don't always see eye to eye on, or eye to eye with.
Okay.
So that's another.
Would you recommend anyone joining a fraternity, or?
Oh, definitely. I have been part of school organizations before, and they're completely different than being in a fraternity. At least as far as it was for me, I was able to put more time into the fraternity than I was able to put time into any other organization. If you have the financial means, by all means, at least pursue it. Show some interest. Gauge how you think the gentlemen or ladies, if you're going into sorority, how they make you feel and how you feel about them. but I wouldn't push somebody into doing it that
Right.
didn't really hold it up there. I guess whenever I was a freshman, I didn't think about it at all. It was not for me. I was like, I don't want to pay for friends, anything like that. But as I got to be an upperclassman, I saw some benefits to it. And then as I was able to get in, I really, really felt the benefits as I was in it.
Okay. All right. Fair enough, dude. Fair enough. All right. Let's transition that thought though into what makes a good social group. What do you think is important about having that kind of group where you can just see them every day and you could just tell them whether you had a good day or bad day, you can always have like the same kind of friends around with you no matter what happens to you. Like what do you think is important about that, and what do you think makes a good social group?
Well, I think it's definitely important to have a social group for the reasons you just said, to have people to blow off steam with and blow off steam to.
For sure.
As far as what makes a social group good or bad, it kind of depends on, I guess, a lot of different things, but who you are as a person and what you're looking for. I think what makes a good social group is having a lot of people with differing opinions. But what makes a great social group is having all these different opinions and then having the tolerance to accept everyone having their different opinions. It's a good way to test your own morals and values and either strengthen them or, I guess, meld them into something that you think is right. Question your own ideals.
Right. I really like to highlight what you said about how there's different opinions out there, but you get to say them in this social group. You get to share your ideas, and then you get to see how other people react to it. And I feel like that's very important. When you go to a social group and they say, "Oh, you got to think this way, say this way," and I feel like that's kind of like a cult, or certain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So if they have you do that, I feel like that's kind of like similar to brainwashing. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that kind of group. I want to be with a group where I could be my honest self, but I'm open to change who I am.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that it can. I've definitely seen people fall into
The
that
trap.
ease, trap of that ease of living where they only hang out with people that agree with them, because then you're just shouting into an echo chamber and nobody ever disagrees with you, and it's you're creating a cage of comfort. I guess you're never gonna grow.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. So, how do you think video games right now is impacting like the world, especially in America? What do you think is very detrimental, I would like to say, about like when you first saw video games when you're a little kid to like how impactful it is now?
I think it's a pretty heavy topic, I guess. With it, this is a really interesting question to have right after they release Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
It's definitely changing things a little bit, but that's the
Yeah.
evolution of them has been from video gaming on your PC in your house to slowly getting, I guess, Civilization 2 multiplayer games over a dial-up, where I'll make one move and then 20 minutes later somebody makes another move or something like that, to now you're on your phone and you're having to walk around outside, making people go outside and find different aspects of their community and meeting people. I think I just read a Reddit comment the other day where somebody got a date from playing Pokemon Go, which is
What?
really good. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean,
That's crazy.
I think there's definitely positives and negatives, and it all depends on how you view video games in general, as just a form of entertainment or as a form of art. I mean, there's lots of independent developers that are doing a lot of very positive things. I've seen some video games that have been developed solely to help children go through some psychiatric problems. They've been, excuse me, developed by psychologists and psychiatrists
Right.
to try and help them through that. And I think that's amazing. And then you have some video games that are just bloodbaths, just endless
Yeah, for sure.
violence on endless violence,
Right.
which can have its own niche, but it's interesting. Very deep question, I think.
Yeah, it is. It is amazing, like how like it went from like being in the closet and just playing your video games and not really telling anyone to
Hmm.
asking everyone, do you have Pokemon Go? What level are you? How many Pokemons you have? to,
Yeah, exactly.
to me, that's crazy. That's crazy seeing that. So,
Yeah, I do love that it's becoming more accepted. People aren't being
yeah,
ostracized because they're a video gamer or anything like that. It's
right.
got its own um, I guess following, but not just that, like social status. People are liking that, but I mean, there's also negativity within that too, as anybody that's watched any of the Twitch chat can tell you, or played any multiplayer Call of Duty game. It can anonymity can breed some terrible uh, personality traits.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But I think this is where people get a little confused. I don't think video games enables people. Like it doesn't like make someone violent or give them that negative personality. I feel like
Hmm.
people already have that and they're reflecting it through video games. So when you have League of Legends, for example, right? People say, "Oh, League
Hmm.
of Legends has a very toxic community and all that good stuff." Um, I don't believe it's League of Legends' fault. I don't think it's the video game's fault. I believe that people already have that inside of them and they're just letting it out any way possible. So if you just meet them in real life, like meet them at work, meet them at a bar, it doesn't matter. I feel like they'll still have that same negative personality. Um, but like through video games, I guess like you don't get to see their face, so they have a little bit more freedom. But I feel like they're still that same kind of person, no matter where they are.
Oh, absolutely. It can be akin to whenever people are getting drunk.
Right.
Their social boundaries, or that they all come down. Their their true self is their true self shines through.
Yeah.
But then again, whenever you're playing something like League of Legends or Call of Duty, you're also in a competitive mode, so your adrenaline's pumping, and then something happens that you feels out of your control, or you're just upset in general, and you lash out because there's no repercussion. So it, I don't think video games make people more violent, or any more violent than any other competition in general. You know,
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. All right. Where do you think video games though is going like into the future? Where do you think like how do you think people are going to be playing video games or like interacting with video games 10 years from now? Like do you think we're going to be like all virtual reality? I mean, we're already there, but I feel like do you think everyone's going to have that in their home or like what do you think about video games in the future?
I definitely think there will be some aspect of that in everybody's home, especially with how virtual reality is progressing. I haven't played anything; I've just seen videos, so I can't speak from experience. But seeing all that stuff makes me think of, the sci-fi movies from late '80s, early '90s, like Johnny Mnemonic, where he puts on a little uh, essentially VR suit and some gloves, and then he's surfing the internet that way. He's not even using a computer, or like, oh man, there's so many of these things, I definitely think it will end up being in everybody's home, if not as a way to play video games, but a way to interact with other people electronically.
Right.
You know, the next evolution of that. But that doesn't mean that we'll shy away from consoles or even retro consoles. I mean, they just got done last week with doing awesome games done quick or summer games done quick, and it was all speedrunners. And I would say the majority of games that they played were retro games, quote unquote. So
Yeah, I saw that.
there's lots of replayability.
Yeah, there is one of my friends. His name is Samuel Van Fleet, and he told me about how I asked him, "What do you think about cars in terms of like futuristic cars? Do you think we'll be able to not have to drive anymore? Because there's already cars out there that do that for us, but you know, there's some cars that do like that had accidents, so people are not really comfortable with them yet. But I feel like I told him I feel like 10 years from now, maybe, you know, everyone will be okay with driving them. Like they'll be smart enough where we can just allow cars to drive for themselves." And he said, "No, I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't think the car design itself is not gonna happen. Like it's gonna change because the car right now is just perfect. Like having it on four wheels, the way it just looks, it just feels right for a human being. And also just like holding the grip of a wheel and taking control. A lot of people just love that. They love like controlling things. So I feel like for video games, you know, just having that controller and just feeling what you're doing to a character, I feel like that's very similar. And I guess that like that is always going to be there. But I don't know how. I don't know how. Like, go ahead.
No, it's just I definitely agree with you.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how many people are going to be using VR though, like walking outside trying to catch Pokemons wearing like a VR goggle. Oh my good lord. That'd be crazy.
That would be crazy.
All right, let's talk about some more examples of social groups though. So for my personal experience, I had a really great social group with World of Warcraft. And for me, I had a lot of trouble with school. So every day I had the opportunity to like play World of Warcraft. Not only do that, but to have a community that it's always there for me. And I felt like that's why I wanted to do this discussion is I feel like there's a lot of kids out there, there's a lot of people out there that feel like they don't have like friends they can connect with and they feel they're very depressed from that. And what helped me a lot is just playing this game, not only playing this game, but also having a group of friends that I can see every day. Like I knew every single day I can log in and they'll be there. They'll be there and they say, "Hey, how you doing? Let's have fun." Like they didn't really care about like what I look like, my sexual orientation. Like they didn't care about any of that. All they really cared about was like the truth of just having fun. And I feel like that's why I really love like having that social group is that if you could just like I felt more empowered in World of Warcraft than I felt like in real life because in real life I felt like it was more of a game in real life. Like I had to figure out what is okay to like what's okay to say like to different people, how do I have to act, how do I have to look and all that good stuff. But in World of Warcraft it's more like I could just be my honest self and see who connects with me, and I felt like that was really awesome. Do you have any other social groups, Britain, though, that you felt like you were able to do that besides your fraternity?
I think most of the time my social groups end up being very small group of people as opposed to having a bunch of people in our social group. I can't guess pick one out.
Yeah.
Such as like you said with your World of Warcraft group, but the things that you highlighted as far as wanting to be your true self and not feeling like you have to play a game or try and meet other people's expectations, I think that's very important for any social group. But I think like one of the reasons that you need to go home every now and again whenever you're in college and just stay some nights at your parents' house instead of staying all the time at the in the fraternity house or in the dorms or something like that, because every time you're around your peers, you feel pressured to be a certain way or act a certain way. And
Right.
then you just sometimes need to come back to something where it's, I guess, like a safe place or a safe zone where you don't have to worry about any social responsibilities. And it kind of sounds like what you had with your social group in World of Warcraft.
That's very true. Very true. I still want that today, and I feel like in school, or in high school, middle school, it was a little bit easier because your classmates were the same every single day. But I
Mm-hmm.
feel like after high school, maybe in college, and even after college, it gets a little bit harder to find that kind of niche group that you can always hang out
Absolutely.
with. And I feel like we're kind of getting there. Like me, you, and John, and that group. I
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we are trying to make a video game social group. And once it gets big enough, I feel like we can connect all these people together and we can always like connect with each other. So I think that'd be pretty awesome to have that.
I agree, and like you were saying, it really does get more difficult outside of school, especially if your chosen career field. If it's difficult to connect with your coworkers, then the place that you spend 8 hours of your day every day doesn't feel very supportive as far as your social needs. It can be very difficult and draining. Like I don't know if you ever played The Sims, but
I haven't
they
played it.
they have little bars that get smaller or drain or get filled depending on what you're doing throughout the day. And there's a social bar, food bar, sleep
What
bar,
the heck?
things like that. Um, so say you're a sim and you go to work and going to work doesn't fill any of your social bar, then you'll just be drained all the time and you'll be wanting to pull your hair out because you don't feel wanted, don't feel loved, and that goes into why it's necessary to have be part of some kind of club or some kind of online forum or
That's
video game
incredible.
group or organization or something like that, so that you can fill that part of
Yeah.
your need, I guess.
I feel like we are very social creatures.
Mm-hmm.
Like I I don't think people understand this yet, but once they do understand this, this is like they'll like we'll do wonders. Like people don't understand. I feel like that celebrities and like people that like are deemed as important or like very valuable, they can't be at that place without fans. Like they can't be there without having like a following. So let's say Hugh Jackman, for example, right? He
Mm-hmm.
can't be a popular actor if there's not people who like him, you know? And I feel like that's what we need. We need other people in order to be like one competitive, but also to see ourselves more and grow ourselves more. Because if you only have yourself, it's really hard to reflect, okay, where am I? Like how much am I improving? Like what more is there to learn? It's really hard to see that if there's no one else around you. You know, like
Absolutely.
it's important to see that. Like those people up there, they didn't just get up there by themselves. They had role models, they had mentors, they had other people around them, and they say, okay, what can I do from here, right? Relative to what other people are doing. And I feel like if people understand that, then like we as a human race can like make an impact. Like we can tear down like a government system, but we can also bring one up, you know? Like I feel like that's how revolutions are made, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just saw a video today about how, I mean, you've heard about all these protests about like the police officers and stuff like that, and especially it
Absolutely.
just happened in Dallas. Very tragic. But yeah, there's like I think like 1,000 people that just like went to the highway and they just blocked both highways like
Yeah, I
going
think
one
that
way and
happened
the
in
other.
California. Yeah.
I think so, yeah. And it's just like that's ridiculous, you know? But like you can only do that if you have like a group of people to do it with. You know, you can't do
Yeah.
it alone. Um, you know, a leader can't rise to the top without having a following.
Absolutely.
Do you have any other social groups though, like outside of, let's say, outside of our video game group? Like, do you have any other social groups, like maybe with work or anything?
Uh, I don't have one with work. I use a lot of the my spare time to try and keep in touch with my friends from Louisiana and from Kansas. Try
Okay.
and keep those up. I think that's something that's very important as you start to, I guess, not necessarily branch out, but as you leave your current base of operations and where you've already grown a social group, you'll you'll miss your friends and you'll want to
Yeah.
keep in contact with them, and sometimes that does take a concentrated effort and take up time.
Yeah, it does. It really does. I haven't really kept up with my friends, you know, I need to. But yeah, it's just like once you leave a certain place, it's just like it's really hard to keep in touch with them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, it used to be very very hard. Now it's a lot easier
yeah, it
with
is.
Facebook and cell
Right.
phones and all that stuff. So.
For sure, for sure. I think we covered a lot though here today
Mm-hmm.
about, you know, a lot of important stuff, but especially about the importance of social gatherings. And I want to leave on one last note though. Um, Brenton, I want you to tell me what your dreams and aspirations are, and there's no limits to this. Like 10 years from now, what would you imagine yourself doing if you could just do anything? Like there's no restrictions, no limitations. Go ahead.
There's no restrictions and no limitations.
Right.
So during that 10 years, I would attempt to go back to school and hopefully get a sometimes some type of business major or master's and open up a business that relates to video games in some way um, with no limits. And I'm assuming that means no limits, like no monetary limits, and hopefully
Right.
all successes.
Yes.
I would have to open
100%
a video.
guaranteed.
Yeah, 100% guaranteed. Then I would absolutely open a video game themed bar, whether it be like an esports bar or just a bar that you know caters to the video gamer, the modern video gamer, and retro video gamer, all in general. So instead of having, you know, TVs up everywhere like a Buffalo Wild Wings showing all the sports everywhere, they can show some esports matches, and then some of them be hooked up to Xboxes and PlayStations and stuff like that, and serve the craft Dallas beers and things like that. So
Yeah.
that would be a dream. So
That is a dream right there. That's awesome. All right, guys, that's it for today. But I hope you guys learned something new, and I hope everyone else is living the dream right now. That's it for now, though. Thank you so much for listening, and just have a wonderful life. Thank you.